Zoe, tell me when I'm recording.
PTEC Course 4 Student Outline, Section 4, Legal Aspects Affecting the Appraisal of Personal Property. Okay, learning objectives. Determine what is exempt by federal law and state law. Distinguish between taxable and exempt property. Know how various exemptions are calculated. Describe problems arising from applying the law in certain situations. A. Introduction. This section examines the laws that govern the personal property appraisal. There are federal laws that supersede state or local laws to guarantee certain rights within property taxation and personal property ownership. Some personal property is shielded in part or in whole from taxation, either by federal law or state law. Number 2, laws appraising personal property can vary depending upon the property's location. Certain rights are guaranteed by federal statutes. Additionally, there are very specific state and local laws and rules for appraising personal property. Texas has specific laws and rules for the treatment of personal property that may differ from other states. It is very important to know how to locate and value personal property and what laws and rules are applicable to appraising personal property in your area. Number 3, be aware that federal and state laws originate in the constitutional, legislative, executive, or judicial arms of government. B. Federal and state laws governing personal property. Number 1, federal law, constitutional rights. Constitutional rights guarantee a certain protection under federal law that are the basic building block of our current property tax system. A. Fifth Amendment. Amendment 5 of the U.S. Constitution. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or pursuit or property with due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Number 1, due process is guaranteed. Number 2, forbids illegal search and seizure of property by government. B. 14th Amendment. Amendment 14 to the U.S. Constitution. Section 1. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Number 1, equal protection requires equal treatment of all taxpayers. C. The Commerce Clause of the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3. The Congress shall have power to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes. Number 1, forbids actions that might restrict trade. Number 2, limits ability to tax inventory, aircraft, or vehicles in interstate commerce. Number 3, congressional action. If federal law provides that a certain category of property is exempt from state or local taxes, it cannot be taxed even though the state constitution and statutes provide for its taxation. Texas Code Section 11.12 recognizes that property exempt by federal law is not taxable. The following property is exempt by federal law. A. All personal property owned by the U.S. government. B. Obligations of the federal government and its instrumentalities. How do you say that big old long word? Instrumentalities. Wow. Instrumentalities. How many is that? Like 7? You're not answering. It is 7. No, it's 6. Instrumentalities. It's 6. Golly. I know big words. Sorry. C. Personal property of military personnel stationed in Texas because of military orders if the person claims that his or her home is in another state, claiming domicile. These are congressional action. The following property is exempt by federal law. So, D. Certain vessels, drilling rigs, and artificial islands on the outer continental shelf. E. Goods moving in interstate commerce. F. Transportation and communication equipment not permanently located within a jurisdiction. G. Certain goods in foreign trade zones and the foreign trade zone itself may be exempt as defined by the U.S. Commerce Department. Number 4. Court decisions. A. Federal courts may rule on issues related to property taxation or related topics. These rulings are enforceable in every state. C. Texas state law. Texas constitutional standards. Taxation must be equal and uniform. All tangible property must be taxed at its January 1 market value, with few exceptions. All property is taxable unless exempt. Property owners have a right to reasonable notification of value increases, and each property belongs in one appraisal district and must have one appraised value. Number 2, legislative actions. Number 1, there are provisions related to the discovery and appraisal of inventory. Tax Code Section 23.12a states, the market value of an inventory is the price for which it would sell as a unit to a purchaser who would continue the business. An inventory shall include residential real property which has never been occupied as a residence and is held for sale in the ordinary course of a trade or business, provided that the residential real property remains unoccupied, is not leased or rented, and produces no income. Number 2, Tax Code Section 6.05 requires the chief appraiser to establish procedures for the equitable and uniform appraisal of inventory. Number 3, the chief appraiser establishes procedure for the determination of the quantity and the quality of inventory without regard to its kind, nature, or character. Number 4, these must apply without regard to the kind, nature, or character of the inventory in the discovery, physical examination, or quantification of all inventories, such as A. Enforcement, B. Verification, and C. Audit procedures, techniques, and criteria. Number 5, failure to consistently apply rules can prevent a chief appraiser from certifying to a taxing unit any portion of the appraisal roll that lists inventory. Number 6, appraisers must apply generally accepted appraisal techniques in computing market value, such as A. Use either cost, market, or income approaches to value, and B. September 1 is an alternate date for inventory appraisal, but use of this date must be applied for and granted by the chief appraiser. D. Court or Attorney General opinions. Court rulings or Texas Attorney General's opinions may lend guidance in Texas property tax issues. E. What allows for the taxation of personal property? Number 1, legal basis. Texas Constitution, Article 8, Section 1 provides that all real property and tangible personal property in Texas, whether owned by natural persons or corporations other than municipal, shall be taxed in proportion to its value. The Texas legislature may provide for the taxation of intangible property, such as Texas Constitution, Article 8, Taxation and Revenue. Taxation shall be equal and uniform. All real property and taxable personal property in this state, unless exempt, is required or permitted by this Constitution, whether owned by natural persons or corporations other than municipal, shall be taxed in proportion to its value, which shall be ascertained as may be provided by law. And the legislature by general law shall exempt from ad valorem taxes household goods not held or used for the production of income and personal effects not held or used for the production of income. The legislature by general law may exempt from ad valorem taxes. Number 2. Tax Code Section 11.01 provides that all real and tangible personal property that this state has jurisdiction to tax is taxable unless exempt by law. Jurisdiction to tax tangible personal property exists if the property is located in Texas for longer than a temporary period, temporarily located outside Texas, and the owner resides in this state, used continually, whether regularly or irregularly, in Texas, and tangible personal property that is operated or located exclusively outside this state during the year preceding the tax year and on January 1 of the tax year is not taxable in this state. F. How do we determine what personal property is exempt? Number 1. There are many exceptions to the rule that all property is taxable. Number 2. Sources of guidance on exemption law are also verified. Nope, how about varied? Sources of guidance on exemption law are also varied. 4 primary sources are A. Federal law and or self-enacting provisions of the Texas Constitution. B. Tax code. C. Case law handed down through the judicial process. D. Attorney General opinions. Number 3. Many organizations or groups qualify for exemptions based on specific activities or purposes and uses of property for normal operations. Here is a partial list of property the tax code exempts from taxation. Number 1, or A, federal, Section 11.12, state and local government property. B, qualified religious organizations, Section 11.20. Qualified private schools, Section 11.21. D, property of qualified youth spiritual, mental, and physical development associations, Section 11.19. E, nonprofit organizations that perform scientific or educational research to benefit a college or university, Section 11.23K. And F, institutions of purely public charity, Section 11.18. Number 4. The tax code also exempts property in the following areas. A, farm products in the hands of the producer, Section 11.16. Implements of husbandry, Section 11.161. Intangible personal property, except intangibles or of some insurance companies and title companies, Section 11.02. D, an individual is entitled to an exemption from taxation of one motor vehicle used for business, but also used for personal activities that are non-income producing, Section 11.254. E, household goods and personal effects not used to produce income, Section 11.14. F, solar and wind-powered energy devices, Section 11.27. G, property of disabled veteran owns, partial exemption. The owner can apply the disabled veteran exemption to either personal property or real property, Section 11.22. Freeport goods, Section 11.251. Considered temporary goods. Considered temporary if goods leave Texas before 175 days have expired. Calculation of Freeport exemption, inventory value as of January 1 times the ratio of cost of Freeport goods sold in the prior year to total cost of goods sold the prior year. Freeport exemption example, here is what we know. Inventory cost as of January 1, $8 million. Cost of goods sold prior year, $20 million. Cost of Freeport goods sold prior year, $5 million. Take the $5 million divided by the $20 million equals 0.25 or 25%. Take the $8 million times 0.25 equals $2 million. So the amount of the exemption for the current year is $2 million. Potential problem areas. Number 4. Potential problem areas. Number 4. Tangible personal property leased by a non-exempt entity, lessor, to an exempt entity, the lessee, is taxable to the owner, lessor, regardless of any contractual agreement of the lessee to pay. Number 5. The religious exemption does not cover all property used by the religious organization. They must own the property. A leased copier, for instance, is still taxable to the lessor who may pass the cost through. Number 6. Lease purchase issues in the hands of political subdivisions can be exempt to the lessor with specific language in a lease that requires title to pass at the end. Number 7. Goods located in foreign trade zones are exempt if held for domestic use and held for export. Number 8. Tax abatements are a contract between the tax authority and a business that exempt a certain amount of value over a period of time. They can apply to personal property, but not inventory. H. In summary, both federal and state laws impact personal property appraisal. The foundation of the appeal process, addressed in later sections, and the equity process are rooted in the U.S. Constitution. State law gives us additional guidance on what is and is not taxable and what procedures must be followed. In section. Bing!